Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well, and welcome to another edition of Reviewing Your Music. We're coming on here, randomly taking viewer submissions on the Twitch platform of viewer music, your songs, your tracks, your everything. Not Couch Your Chest over here, don't worry about that. But we're taking your tracks, we're going to listen to them, we're going to jam them. We're going to see what we're working with in terms of talent, in terms of ability. And everything that we're going to talk about in this video is linked down below. Check it out for yourself. And you're the best. All right, here's our first submission here. It's from username Chief EPH. Chief EPH, throw up some melons in chat, please. I just want to check on if you're here. Where's Chief EPH? If you want to submit, it's !RYM. Mootbot will throw out a link, and you can submit there. Let me see that, Chief EPH. Melons in chat. There you are. Thank you very much. Amazing. Fantastic. All right, so under the name 218, we have the song Hurt. The genre is labeled as electronic R&B / singer-songwriter, and here is the track. Let's give it a spin.
You just always know what you think. I don't like that.
You must know what you feel, though.
Okay, I want to try one more. I want to go back and try one more part of the song again.
I think how it felt at the time, but
I'm lonely too. I'd rather get lost somewhere with you.
Okay. Listen, I think it's a decent track. You know, it's got that very direct alternative R&B flavor. I think vocally you're going to get some comparisons to The Weeknd here and there, obviously, but really it's more of a style thing. I don't think you're like a dead ringer for Abel or anything else. Excuse me, I'm sort of fucking up my words here. Blah, blah, blah. Let me rewind. I'll say this. Generally, I like the track. Obviously, you're going for a pretty direct alternative R&B flavor here. Not hearing necessarily what makes the song so electronic. Obviously, it's very synthetic, aesthetically speaking, in terms of how you've produced it. But just kind of seems like, it's just very firmly in that alt R&B style. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of Abel and Weeknd comparisons on the vocal end, but the vocals are pretty decent. I'll say this. I liked the vibe and I liked kind of the softness and the smoothness of it, but the drums, I think, were working against that vibe a little bit. I think they were maybe a tad too abrasive and dry to really kind of melt into this dreamy assembly of sounds that you've pulled together here. I'll say, as a matter of like personal taste, I don't know if I cared so much for what seemed like the feature on the song. Maybe it was like too whispery, too low key, but I still feel like that moment showed quite a bit of attention being paid to the overall structure of the track. I feel like at that moment you needed a change, you needed a shift, you needed a something, and you obviously put enough care into this to add that there. There are going to be people who that moment probably goes over a lot better with than me, but it still shows that you put that structural effort into the song that you should be. I think the vocal leads on the hook are pretty decent as well. It's a sweet track. It's low key. I'm not going to say it's like the most stylistically original out there, but I mean, you're putting together a lot of foundational elements here very well and very cogently. Just sounds like a very functional and a sweetly melodic track. I guess from here I would, recommend experimenting with other vocal styles and getting a little bit more into texture, trying to I guess, experiment with, and I don't, I'm not recommending that you make literally experimental music. I'm just saying, try other synth patches, try other bits of percussion, try different applications of effects to maybe hit on, some more original sounds and styles. But outside of that, like what you've put together here, functionally speaking, is very, I guess, tasteful. Again, shows that you're paying attention and that you have an attention to detail on here. And it was certainly a vibe as well. So not bad. Not bad at all. And a good start to tonight. All right. We've got our next submission here. And again, thank you very much for coming through. And, being so brave as to, share your stuff with us. All right. Again, the artist, Chase Christian, title Caroline. It's labeled, blah, blah, blah. Artist, Chase Christian, title Caroline, genre R&B and pop. And here's the song. Again, Caroline demo. Let's give it a try. Let's see what's up with it. Ba-bam. Okay, not bad. Wow. I like the vocal on that a lot. The vocal was good. The vocal was quite good. It was a dope vocal. I mean, obviously a very raw demo, just vocals and guitar. But I will say I did like how the song came on very easy and then seemed to pick up at least a little bit of momentum and get a tad bit more, sensual and intense around the midpoint, even with the bare elements that you're working with here. It did seem like you knew where to add a little bit more and lay it on a little bit harder just to create some sense of variation. I'll say around structurally, like the 218 moment, like, if you're looking at the entire waveform over here, around the point at which you have that kind of final gap over here before you play the chorus one more time and kind of play it out, I'd say there, bridge there, bridge it out, add some kind of bridgy-widgy, a bridge, a change or something. I feel like it really kind of needed it. And then, once you were done with that, come back with that chorus, add some kind of variation when you're working with a producer or you're producing it yourself, and thicken it up, add some kind of change there, vary it in some way so that that chorus comes back harder than it's been on the two previous couple of instances where it played through. It's a solid song. It's a solid song with a good vocal performance. I would say at this point, you need to start working on producing this from scratch or shop it around to some, amateur producers and see if you can get, a creative dynamic going with somebody, I mean, that's my advice past this point. It's a solid tune with a good vocal performance. Obviously it's a demo. Obviously it's not done, but the song is so solid. You should work on kind of finishing this. You should work on making this, sort of like commercially ready is really kind of the next step that you have to make here. This one is kind of ready for that next step. Again, outside of adding the bridge, you have the bare blueprint here, which is kind of, the hardest part of the process, getting to this so that when you go into the studio or you hand this to a producer or you start, sort of adding beats, other instrumentation, where the roadmap is because where the song is going and the structure and you understand, how it's moving from point A to point B. That's all done. Just start building the frame around it and add everything else instrumentally now. And you know what? I think you could produce this song pretty simply too. It doesn't need to be super busy or super, you could go very complicated with it and get heavy with it, if you want. But I don't know if you need much more than, some drums and bass and keys and some background vocals. Make it a little wet. I think you're, pretty much golden. But yeah, solid track. Thanks for sending it in. Solid demo, everyone. solid demo. All right. Okay. Do I have melons in chat from Thirsty and Miserable? I think that's the name. Thirsty and Miserable. I need melons in chat from Thirsty and Miserable. And if you've sent in a submission, we've most likely got it, but we're just picking them randomly. So again, Thirsty and Miserable. Oh, there's Silk Toad. Silk Toad's finally here. We'll get to you after this, Silk Toad. But I want to see melons in chat from Thirsty and Miserable. There we go, melons. You need to put up a melon emote, Thirsty and Miserable. I don't want to see you typing out melons literally. All right, Thirsty and Miserable. Now, he has submitted a song under the artist name Nailbreaker. The title is Clowns, and the genre is said to be noise rap / digital hardcore. Let's play this cut and see what it's all about. All right, here we go. A 1 and a 2, and you know what to do. Hey, thank you for the subs. Ah! It's derivative in some very obvious ways, but the beat still fucks. The beat still very much fucks. The beat still very much fucks. Look, I loved your use of distortion. I thought that maybe the percussion that you used, the perks that you used could have been a little bit more interesting, but I loved your use of distortion and noise and texture on this. That was a treat. That was certainly a saving grace of the track. And look, I noticed across the song, you came off like a little bit of a vocal chameleon, which is not a bad thing. It brought the track versatility in a way. I guess what really kind of stuck out to me and to some other people in chat as well, were those portions where you're lying in the lower part of your voice, which read very much Death Grips, obviously. When honestly, like the spots that stuck out to me as the most interesting were the moments where you were really kind of like leaning into your accent and not being afraid to show that off. And look, I mean, there's not a lot of people out there in, industrial hip hop, digital hardcore, who are rocking like a thick English accent or, whatever. Just throw that out there. Like, make that obvious, throw that in people's faces. I mean, there were plenty of parts of the song where it was clear, but, I would say that was one of the things that kind of made, your vocal delivery, your vocal style on this unique, because again, there's not a whole lot of artists in this lane who are putting out tracks from your neck of the woods. So I don't know. I would kind of lean into that a little bit. The track had a good structure. There were some awesome psychedelic, overwhelming, weird little production passages and details that you worked in that were really noisy. And some of the vocal manipulations and layering that you had on the back end where they sounded like reversed and were swelling was kind of fucking insane. But there was, overall just like a good groove. It was nasty. It was in your face. You were really kind of like fucking savage with it, I guess. I guess from here, just like the first artist that we heard, you've got a lot of the fundamentals down. I would continue experimenting and taking the things that, maybe me and other people, if you're able to show them this music that stands out to them as unique, and start to lean into that stuff more and, sort of define your sound by that stuff. Just continue from here. This was an interesting listen. This was a fun listen. I hear a lot of, because of what I've reviewed over the years, and because of, the fact that there are a lot of people in my audience that listen to Death Grips, I do hear a lot of amateur industrial hip hop, a lot of emails and pitches where people are like, hey, me and my friends or I'm just making industrial hip hop. And a lot of it's bad. This was way more listenable than most of the stuff that lands in my inbox in that lane. So I would say keep with it. I would say keep with it. You know, you despite it not being the most original thing in the world, you have a cool and, you know, a steady command of texture, of structure, the way that you're balancing the instrumentation and mixing as well, which I know for music this abrasive and strange is not always easy. Maybe there were a few portions that were a little too ear piercing on the track, but for the most part, I thought everything, you know, came through loud and clear, especially loud. Yeah, you know, you're showcasing a lot of good fundamentals. And again, I would recommend to just keep progressing and evolving. And if you stick with it and you keep putting out stuff and you keep recording stuff and you keep trying to make yourself better, soon you're going to reach a point where you hear this EP and you're like, you know, I did that. I'm past this point. You know, I'm doing better stuff now. I'm doing more interesting stuff now. And as long as you're pushing forward and trying new things, you're going to land upon something, I think. So just keep doing it. Keep doing it. And also, I don't know what your social media presence is like at this moment, but, you know, as much as I'm making recommendations here to, you know, kind of change things and improve things, I think there are a lot of people who would fuck with this as is. You know, I would recommend maybe hopping on YouTube, hopping on TikTok, finding some alternative ways to get some videos behind this stuff and start putting those out on social media. You know, I think that's also a recommendation that I would make. And maybe you don't feel like you're at that point yet. I would start laying the groundwork for that right now, because, you know, at some point you're going to need to make that shift. If you actually make something that you want to, that you want everyone in the world listening to, you know, you're going to need a video. You're going to need, you know, different social media platforms to promote this stuff effectively. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. All right. Thank you again for submitting. Appreciate it. All right. Next, we already know that Silk Toad is here because he was here earlier and he threw up melons in chat. So I imagine he has not gone as of right now. I imagine he's here for us all to listen to this song that he has submitted. Again, we have Silk Toad. That's the artist. The title is Snake Eyes. The genre is labeled to be art punk. Let's give it a listen. Ba-bam. I like that little vocal refrain that you did toward the end quite a bit. That almost had like a Dan Deacon vibe to it. I mean, I don't know if I would label this as art punk. I mean, you know, I think as the artist, you could call it whatever the hell you want, I guess, at the end of the day. I mean, I would say it's more of a piece of indie-tronic pop with maybe some neo-psych underpinnings. I mean, there were certainly psychedelic effects, you know, soaked pretty deeply into the mix. And, you know, the electronic characteristics of the track were pretty prominent as well. There were moments where the driving drums and lead guitars read as a little beach house. There were moments where, again, toward the end, it almost had like that Dan Deacon vibe to it. And, you know, maybe just a slight splash of Animal Collective. I don't know if these are any of your influences or anything, but those are just parallels to me. But with that being said, I thought there were some good, colorful ideas playing throughout this, but maybe not all of them translated because the mix came off so mushy. And I think you need to clear this bitch out. You got to clear this fucking bitch out a little bit. And look, I understand things might end up sounding a little bit like a wall of sound if you're going for a trippier sound. If you're going for a trippier aesthetic, that's fine. That's cool. But even if it ends up being a wall of sound, you still want to achieve some kind of balance between all the sounds that you're presenting to the listener in the mix. And, the bass was fine, but it's not the most interesting thing here. It's actually one of the most basic musical elements. And while the bass should be audible and you should feel the bass, it shouldn't be just like burying everything else. The vocals I thought had a cute kind of nasally quality to them. I don't know if you're self-conscious about your vocals or anything like that, but I thought the vocals were cool. The only portion of the vocals I didn't quite like was when you started throwing on what sounded like some kind of manipulation or auto-tune. And not that you shouldn't mess with the vocals. I mean, go for it, go ahead. But that portion to me felt a little grating and didn't quite, play into the smoothness aesthetically of every other part of the song. But I thought there was a, kind of a quaintness to the first vocal passage on the track. I thought that those, again, group refrains that were very boisterous, a little tongue-in-cheek toward the end, were really cute and really fun. These were, interesting and appealing characteristics of the song. I just wish they were bolder. I wish they were clearer. I wish they were a little more in your face. But all in all, it's got some likable qualities to it. I'll also say, maybe continue to work on the structure of the track too. While, there was versatility to the song and I could feel that you were kind of throwing in different sounds here and there, to kind of break things up. But I guess I wasn't really getting the sense that they were building off of each other all that effectively. I almost felt like that ending vocal refrain that you had could have been like a jump off point into something else, But I guess that's kind of the range of my thoughts on this track. But at the end of the day, I'll say priority on this one is definitely the mix. I'll say, the mix definitely needs to be retooled. But the sounds that you're working with are cool. I just think they need to be balanced better. So keep at it. And thank you for submitting. All right. Let's do another one. I want to see melons in chat from Victor FFFFFFFFFFFF. Melons in chat from Victor FFFFFFFFFF. Like a million Fs. All right. So again, as I was saying, we had username Victor FFFFFFFF in here. The artist that he has submitted under the name of is Dormente. The title of the track is Quem, Você, Tenta. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Probably not, because of my gringo ass. But the genre is labeled to be synth pop and neo psych. Let's give the track a try. Ba-bam. Okay. Man, that had a almost like a neo-psych vibe, that had a synth funk vibe, that had a chill wave vibe to it as well. There were some cool influences flowing throughout that. But I'll say this almost had almost like the opposite issue of some of the stuff we were listening to earlier. What I can compliment this track on the most is just the sound choice. Was very bold, was very colorful, was very lush. The sound of this track from front to back was lush as fuck, was thick, was pillowy. Like, as far as your use of synthesizers and your perks and everything, it was ear candy, and even the stuff that I wasn't crazy about, like some of the drier bits of percussion that you were throwing in here and there. I at least liked the attempt that you were making there to at least bring a lot of different sounds to the table and keep every passage fresh sounding with a different synth bit, a different, vocal effect, a different bit of percussion that you weren't hearing previously. I appreciate that about the track. I think that's the best quality about the track. Outside of that, I'll say that this groove needs some tightening. In my opinion, when it comes to a groove on a song, and this is like entirely separate from the songwriting process itself. This is not the same thing. I'm not talking about a song here. I'm talking about a groove. The groove of the track is like a sculpture. And, sometimes you're not getting the finer details of it. Sometimes you're adding too much. Sometimes there's too little. But at the end of the day, the groove is like a structure, is like a sculpture. And I think this groove needs to be sculpted a little bit more. I think that the, synthesizers that you had in were maybe not as tight to the tempo as they could be. There were some drier bits of percussion. I couldn't quite tell. Were they in the right channel that were kind of like popping off the kick every once in a while, like in every other passage of the song? That didn't, I think, play into the beat as well as it could. And then those metallic clangs that I think were happening in the other channel maybe, after those portions of the track, maybe didn't play into the beat as well as it could have either. Again, I like that you're throwing a variety of sounds into it, and I like that there are quite a few layers to this groove, but I don't think they're as tight as they could be. It's not as tight and as cleanly assembled as it could be. Which I think is especially important considering just how many elements you're working with here. There's a lot of different sounds. There's a lot of different elements going on at once. And when you're doing that, it's very important that everything sort of, when you're talking about a groove, everything be exactly in the right place. Because the groove, again, it's the foundation, it's literally the beat that everything on the song it's the heart that everything on the song beats by. So the groove's got to be tight, especially on something again like this with so many layers to it. It's got to be monstrously tight. And when I say tight, I don't mean, it's got to be like so quantized that it just sounds like a fucking, rigid robot. It can be a little loose, but there has to be a relative proximity to tightness between everything. For it to really pop off. And I think, you're close. You're very close. It's obviously close enough to be listenable, and it is a very listenable and it is an enjoyable track. But I don't think it's as tight as it could be. I think it'd be a tad tighter, just a tad tighter. And, there are other things that you could probably do with the track, like add a bridge toward the end, do a bigger finish instead of a fade out. But honestly, I'm sure throughout the rest of this record, it looks like there's longer tracks here. I'm sure you experiment and, venture out into a series of different song structures. Yeah, I'm not going to harp on that. I'm going to say, it's mostly the groove on this track that I think needs some tightening. And I think I'll leave it at that. But still, thank you for submitting. And thank you for taking the time and coming through. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Reviewing Your Music. Make sure again to check out the artists we featured in this video down below in the description box. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. And yeah, that's it. You're the best. Have a good one. Forever.